There's a very specific sound that ruins my life. It's a cheerful electronic two-note chime. Ding dong! It's the door sensor. At 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, that sound isn't just annoying, it's wrong. It violates the rules. The rules of the universe, or at least my universe, state that between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., I do not exist to the public. I am a ghost in a polyester vest. Let me back up a little bit. My name is Aiman. I'm 36 years old, and I am currently sitting on a wobbling stool behind the counter of a Gas and Go, about 40 kilometers from the nearest real city. The fluorescent lights overhead hum like a trapped insect, and the smell of stale coffee and lemon floor cleaner is the perfume of my personal paradise. People think I'm a loser. I see it in the eyes of the morning crew when they relieve me at 7 a.m. They see a guy in his mid-30s making minimum wage, staring at a phone screen surrounded by beef jerky and Monster energy drinks. They think I couldn't hack it in the real world. They're wrong. I'm not here because I failed. I'm here because I succeeded. I cracked the code. See, I don't want success. I don't want a career trajectory. I want to be left alone. My goal is simple. Maintain a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute for as long as humanly possible. I took this graveyard shift specifically because the owner complained that nobody ever comes in at night. Perfect, I told him. I'm your man. Most nights, I bring a camping chair from my par, set it up in the aisle between the chips and the sodas, and I just sit. I listen to the silence. It's heavy and thick, like a weighted blanket. I don't even read that much. I just exist. It's beautiful, it's safe. But then comes the ding dong. I look up from my spot behind the counter. The glass doors slide open. A gust of wind blows in, smelling like wet asphalt and ozone. But nobody walks in. I wait. I hold my breath. The sensor is sensitive, sure, but usually it needs a physical mass to trigger it. Maybe a moth? A really big moth? Hello? I call out. My voice sounds rusty. I haven't used it in 4 hours. Nothing. Just the hum of the soda fridges. I feel a little spike of annoyance in my chest. This is exactly what I hate. Disruption, unknown variables. I lean back on my stool, trying to force my shoulders down. It's just the wind, it's old wiring, it's fine. I go back to staring at the wall, trying to reclaim my zen. Ding dong. The doors slide open again.
You have to understand why this rattles me. It's not just because it's creepy, it's because I've worked very, very hard to build a life where things like fear and surprise don't happen. 3 years ago, I was a senior project manager for a logistics firm in the city. I wore a suit. I had a shiny watch. I had a corner office with a view of other miserable people in other corner offices. I also had the Sunday scaries, so bad I would vomit every Monday morning before work. I lived in a state of constant, vibrating panic. My phone was a bomb that went off every 3 minutes. Emails, deadlines, Aiman, where are the deliverables? Aiman, the client is screaming. Aiman, we need you on a Zoom call at 9 p.m. It wasn't living. It was being slowly digested by a monster made of stress. I felt like my brain was constantly sunburnt, raw, sensitive, hurting to the touch. One day, during a quarterly review, where my boss was yelling about synergy and hustle culture, I just stopped. It wasn't a dramatic scene. I didn't flip a table. I just felt something snap in my chest, like a rubber band that had been pulled too tight for a decade. I realized that ambition is a scam.
Stress is a disease and I was terminal. So I quit. I sold the condo. I moved out here to the middle of nowhere where the rent is cheap and the expectations are lower than the dirt. I built a bubble. A beautiful, boring bubble. I don't do drama. I don't do relationships, too messy. I don't do risks. I view chaos the way other people view nuclear radiation. I stay away from it. This job, this counter, it's my bunker. So when those doors open for a third time and I still don't see anyone, the old sickness starts to creep back in. My heart rate, my precious low heart rate, starts to climb. Ding dong, open, close. Ding dong, open, close. It's happening rhythmically now, every 5 seconds. Like a heartbeat, but annoying. I stand up, my knees popping. Okay, very funny, I say, walking around the counter. I'm not scared, I tell myself. I'm just annoyed. This is disrupting my peace. Someone is messing with the sensor. Some bored teenagers probably drove 20 kilometers just to annoy the night shift guy. I walk toward the glass doors. It's pitch black outside. The station's canopy lights create a pool of white glare, but beyond that, it's just void. I step onto the mat, the doors slide open. I look left, I look right. The parking lot is empty. No cars, no teenagers, not even a stray dog. I step out onto the concrete. The air is dead still, no wind. So what triggered the sensor? I turn around to go back inside, back to my stool, back to my safety. That's when I see it. On the glass of the automatic door, right at eye level, there's a handprint. It's small, greasy, and it's on the inside of the glass. I stared at that print for a solid 30 seconds. My brain did a quick calculation and decided that ghosts was a variable I wasn't paid enough to process. Greasy kid, I muttered. That was the only logical explanation. Some kid had been in here earlier, touched the glass with their french fry fingers, and the condensation or lighting was just catching it now. I grabbed the spray bottle of Windex and a paper towel. I wiped the glass aggressively, scrubbing away the anomaly. Gone. Problem solved. Order restored. I retreated to my camping chair in the snack aisle, put my headphones on, and started a documentary about Moss. Moss doesn't have deadlines. Moss doesn't have quarterly reviews. I must have dozed off, lulled by the narrator's whisper. Thump. I jerked awake. It wasn't the door chime this time. It was a heavy, dull sound, wet and dense. Like someone had dropped a frozen turkey onto the linoleum floor from a great height. I pulled my headphones off. Silence. I checked my watch. 4:12 a.m. I groaned, rubbing my face. I was annoyed now, actually irritated. This was my time. The universe was supposed to be asleep. If this was a raccoon that had somehow gotten into the back storage, I was gonna punt it into the parking lot. I stood up, stretching my back. If you're a robber, I shouted toward the back of the store, the safe is on a time lock and I have literally $0 in the register. No answer. I grabbed the broom, my weapon of choice against nature's intruders, and marched past the soda coolers toward the back. The store felt different. The air was thin. You know that feeling when you're on a plane and your ears need to pop? It was like that. And cold. I mean, it's always chilly near the freezers, but this was biting. It went right through my polyester vest. I turned the corner into the last aisle, the frozen food section. The lights back here were flickering. Not the strobe light effect you see in movies, but a slow, sickly dimming, like the power was being drained away by something thirsty.
Okay, I said, shivering. That's just bad wiring. I'm calling the electrician tomorrow. This is a safety hazard. I gripped the broom tighter. I was looking for a raccoon, or maybe a drunk teenager passed out on the floor. What I found was a smudge. I stopped in front of the upright ice cream freezer. The glass door was fogged up completely, which shouldn't happen. These things are industrial grade. But through the white frost, I could see a shape inside. It wasn't a pint of Ben & Jerry's. It looked like a bundle of trash bags had been shoved onto the middle shelf. But as I leaned closer, squinting against the bad light, the shape resolved itself. It looked like meat. Not fresh meat. It looked like the stuff you find at the bottom of a chest freezer after 3 years. Gray, freezer burned, unrecognizable protein wrapped in layers of crinkled, cloudy plastic, and it was standing up. It was jammed between the drumsticks and the ice sandwiches, hunched over. It looked vaguely human, but wrong. The arms were too long, wrapped in that translucent milky film. Chunks of blue rime ice clung to it like barnacles. My stomach turned. "What the hell?" I whispered. I wasn't scared yet. My brain couldn't categorize this as a threat. It categorized it as a mess. Someone had pranked me. Someone had built a sculpture out of expired hamburger meat and trash and shoved it in my freezer. "Real funny," I said, my voice trembling just a little. "Very creative." The thing inside the freezer didn't move. It just stood there, perfectly still. In fact, it was the stillest thing I had ever seen. Even rocks seemed to vibrate a little. This thing was absolute zero.
I should have walked away. I should have gone back to the counter, grabbed my keys, and driven home. I should have left the store unlocked and never come back. But I'm Aiman, and Aiman hates unresolved tickets. Aiman hates disorder. I'm not cleaning that up, I said to the empty aisle. I am absolutely not cleaning that up. I reached for the handle of the freezer door. I wanted to prove it was fake. I wanted to poke it with the broom handle and feel that it was just stiff plastic and frozen dowels. I needed to pop the bubble of fear that was starting to inflate in my chest so I could go back to being bored. My hand touched the metal handle. It was so cold it burned my skin. Snap. The sound was loud in the quiet store. Hum of the compressors, the white noise I had lived with for 6 months, suddenly cut out. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was violent. It was a vacuum that sucked the air right out of the room. The lights overhead buzzed once and died, plunging the aisle into darkness except for the pale, sickly green glow of the exit sign at the far end of the store and the blue light coming from inside the freezer. I tried to pull my hand back, but the cold was sticky. My palm was fused to the metal. "Hey," they said. Panic, real panic, finally kicked the door down. "Hey, let go!" Inside the freezer, the figure shifted. Then it moved like a person. It moved like a stop-motion animation with missing frames. 1 second it was hunched, and the next it was upright. The plastic wrapping around its head crackled as it turned to face me. There was no face. There was just a smooth, flat pane of frost where a face should be. It was like looking into a mirror made of ice. And beneath that frost, I saw something dark moving, shifting like black water under a frozen lake. The door I was stuck to clicked. It wasn't locked. The door began to swing open, pulling me with it, pulling me towards the thing. A wave of cold hit me that smelled like old blood and ozone. That thing loomed over me, smelling of deep preserved decay. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't angry. It was just so patient. The cold wasn't just temperature anymore. It was a physical weight, like heavy, wet wool being wrapped around my bones. My hand was gone. I couldn't feel it past the wrist. The numbness was creeping up my forearm, turning my veins into little rivers of ice. The worst part, it felt nice. That was the horror. That was the trap. As that thing leaned out of the freezer, towering over me, I felt the wave of pure narcotic lethargy wash over my brain.
It was offering me the very thing I'd spent 3 years chasing. It was broadcasting a signal into my skull. No more emails, no more rent, no more noise, just quiet. Just sleep forever. It was the ultimate quiet life. My knees buckled. I wanted to slump against the freezer. I wanted to let it win. It would be so easy to just let my heart rate slow down. 60, 40, 20, 0. No! I mumbled. My lips felt like rubber. The figure reached out a hand. It wasn't a hand, really. It was a cluster of frozen hot dogs and plastic wrap fused into a claw. It touched my shoulder. The pain was excruciating. It shocked me awake. I realized in that moment that I had made a terrible mistake. I thought I wanted stillness. I thought I wanted the world to stop. But this wasn't peace. This was just being meat. I didn't want to be meat. I needed chaos. I needed the one thing I had spent my entire adult life avoiding. I screamed, "Get off me!" The sound died instantly, swallowed by the silence, vacuum this thing created. It was like screaming underwater. The entity didn't even flinch. It didn't understand noise. It absorbed it. I needed more. I needed violence. I pivoted on my heel, ignoring the tearing sensation in my frozen palm, and kicked the metal shelving unit next to me as hard as I could. Clang! The vibration traveled through the floor. The entity twitched. The smooth pain of frost on its face rippled. It didn't like that. "You want quiet?" I yelled, my voice cracking, hysterical. "I'll give you quiet!" I grabbed a glass jar of pickles from the shelf with my free hand and smashed it against the floor. Crash! Vinegar and glass exploded everywhere. The entity recoiled, stepping back into the freezer. The grip on the silence wavered. I could hear the hum of the lights trying to come back on. I didn't stop. I became a whirlwind of destruction. I swept my arm across the shelf, sending cans of soup, jars of salsa, and boxes of crackers. Thud, crack, smash. "Is this stressful enough for you?" I screamed, tears freezing on my face. "Are we synergizing yet?" I planted my feet and pulled my stuck hand with everything I had. There was a sickening ripping sound, like Velcro separating, and I fell backwards onto the linoleum, cradling my bleeding, frostbitten hand. I was free. I scrambled backward, slipping on pickle juice and broken glass. The entity was stepping out of the freezer now, fully emerging. It was huge, shambling, dripping with half-thawed slime. It opened its mouth, or the tear in the plastic where a mouth should be, and let out a sound like a glacier cracking. It was trying to reassert the silence. The cold deepened. The lights flickered and died again. I couldn't outrun it. I could feel my legs getting heavy, my blood turning to slush. I needed a weapon, not a broom. I needed a bomb. My eyes landed on the red cylinder mounted to the pillar near the front of the aisle. Fire extinguisher. I lunged for it. My fingers fumbled with the pin, so cold, so clumsy, but I yanked it free. The entity was right behind me. I could feel the chill radiating off it, freezing the sweat on my neck. I didn't aim it at the monster. That wouldn't work. Cold against cold, useless. I turned and sprinted toward the front of the store. My gas-and-go sanctuary, my bubble. "I quit!" I roared. I hurled the heavy steel canister through the plate glass front window. Ka-shing! The sound was glorious. It was the loudest thing I had ever heard. The safety glass didn't just break, it exploded. The vacuum seal of the store was shattered. The outside world rushed in, the humid night air, the sound of crickets, the distant hum of the highway, and the alarm. Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. It was ear-splitting, piercing, horrible. I spun around. The entity was standing in the middle of the aisle, convulsing. The noise was tearing it apart. The vibration of the alarm was shattering its ice skin. It reached out toward me, desperate, but its arm crumbled into chunks of gray meat and dirty water before it could touch me. It collapsed into a wet, stinking pile of slush on the floor. I live in the city now. I have an apartment right above a busy intersection. There's a jazz club downstairs that plays until 4 a.m. The garbage trucks come at 5 a.m. My neighbors argue constantly. I sleep like a baby. I work at a stock exchange now. It's a nightmare. Phones ringing, people screaming, numbers flashing, cortisol levels through the roof. My doctor tells me my blood pressure is too high. He tells me I need to relax. He tells me I need to find a quiet place to unwind. I just laugh. I look at my left hand. The scars on my palm look like a map of a spider web. The nerves are dead there. I can't feel heat or cold in that hand anymore. It's a reminder. Silence isn't peace. Silence is just the waiting room for death. Give me the noise. Give me the stress. Give me the shouting and the chaos and the absolute beautiful mess of being alive. Because I know what's waiting in the quiet, and I'm never going back there.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. Like and subscribe for more nightmares. Your support keeps the darkness from consuming this channel, so we can face the next terrifying story together. Don't be left in the dark.